So I've been asked a few times what the blue stuff is in some of my videos. So I thought I'd make a video explaining what this stuff is. So as you can see, this stuff is fairly strong and it's been made into custom shapes. This one was made to fit the body of an angle grinder. So this is what the blue material is. This is a reel of PLA filament, and that comes in 1 kilogram reels like this usually, and that has a diameter of 1.75 millimeters. You do get it in other diameters. That one's got a diameter like that matches the diameter of my 3D printer. So the first thing I usually do when I want to print something out is I'll take some measurements of what it is. So in this case, I'll show you taking measurements of a plant pot. So I've got a plant pot where the water is leaking over the sides and going onto the patio. So next, I'll use a profile gauge to gather the shape of the base of the plant pot. So once I've got the profile of the shape that I want to make, I can just take a picture of that one, and then I can import that picture into Fusion 360 and start to design a shape around that. So Fusion 360 is a piece of software that's free for non-businesses or people who don't make any money from it. Okay, so let's see what the actual problem is. So I'll just put some water into the pot on the top here, and then we'll start to see the water draining through. So here what you see is the water's coming down, wicking around the curve and coming out beyond the ends of the bounds of the pot. So let's see what we can do to fix this and make something in Fusion 360 and print it out on the 3D printer. So what I've got is a profile device that will conform to the shape when you push against, and these pins will move and it will give you the contour. Okay, so now we've got the profile of the shape that I want to make something in the 3D printer. So the idea is that I'll make a ring that fits inside here and the edges will come out, and that'll direct the water down rather than looping around the curved surface here. So the first thing we're going to do is create a sketch in the XZ plane, and that's because we want to rotate it around the Z axis and because the printer's set up with an XY plane being the base. And the next thing we want to do is to insert the profile diagram that we took. So we're just selecting the face there, and now we'll select the image. And let's just zoom in a little bit there. And then we'll just say OK on that. So the first thing we want to do is calibrate this so that the size on here in the image is the same as the size on the sketch that we're using. So we just go into the canvases and we select calibrate. So I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. And what we're going to do here is we're going to select some known sizes. So we're going to go from there 1, 2, 13, 14, 15. And we'll say that's 150 millimeters. Okay, and then we'll just zoom out. So now the scale of the profile there is the same as the scale in the model. So the next thing we want to do is just to get this rotated so that the base of the profile here that's at the bottom of the pot is going to be horizontal in the model. So 1.2. Okay, so I'd say that looks pretty horizontal along those edges here, which was the base of the pot. Let's click on OK on that. So now we want to get this centered. So the other thing I did was I measured the base of the pot, and I want the piece of plastic that we're going to make to fit up inside so that when I put the pot down on the ground, it's not going to be sitting on the 3D printed part. So we're going to draw a line. Doesn't really matter where it is. And we're going to make that 10.2. Oops. 100.2 because it's in millimeters. And we want to center this line. So we'll select the line and the origin here and midpoint. So now that line is centered here. So let's move this diagram, or the profile rather. So it's about centered over. So just click on OK. So now what we want to do is create an arc. So I'm going to do a 3-point arc. So I'm going to do the end of the arc there. Let's choose this point here. And then we choose 1 point on the arc. So that looks good. So the next thing we want to do is we'll draw a line. So L for line. And here. So let's go. First I'm going to click down of 5. So now we've created a profile that's got the rough curve of the base of the pot. Next what I want to do is to create a body for this. Let's stop that sketch and we'll select that profile and let's create a revolve. So the profile we're going to revolve is that profile. The axis we're going to select is the Z axis and we're going to go 360 degrees. So let's have a look to see what that looks like. So let's save that one. So just call it drip stop. And then let's select make a 3D print. And we'll just select the body that we've just done. And we want to send it to the 3D print utility. I want to save a copy of that on my hard drive. And click OK. So let's call that drip stop. And next we want to go into our slicer program. So next what we want to do is to add the model. Okay, so the model is the STL file that we exported from Fusion 360. So click slice, and what this is going to do is it's going to create the different layers. So as you go up through the model, so these lines here are the model. And you can see what it's doing there. Okay, so we'll say export the G code. So the G code is the information that the printer understands. Slicers understand the STL, and that's the model. And this is the instructions for the printer for what to do for each layer height. So let's copy that file. So just paste that one in there. And then we'll take that over to the 3D printer. This filament here, that gets fed down into this block here. So that has a heating block underneath. that gets melted and it just squeezes out the right amount of filament for each bit. So the next thing is to take the SD card, put that in the printer, and let's turn on the printer. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so here we have the screen of the printer. So let's click on print and we'll select the drip stop. And that starts setting up the printer now. So what you first see is the bed's going to start to heat up to 60 degrees and the extruder is going to heat up to 205 for the PLA. So that's now reached temperature, so what it's going to start to do is it's going to start to do the first layer there. So this first line it's putting out is just kind of like eject a little bit of filament. It's not actually part of the print. So I've got it set up, so it's going to do 2 of those going around. Okay, so now it's starting to do the first layer of the print. Okay, so the next part is to try and just tear off the support material all the way around. And we're left with the part. Okay, so let's see how this fits. So I just need to glue that into place. Hopefully we've got a line all the way around there. Okay, now I'll get something to weight that down and then we'll come back and see what that looks like. Okay, the moment of truth. Let's put some water into this blue pot and see how it transfers down below. So there we go. Working as expected. That's really good. So that will stop the water spilling over the sides of the pots. Cheerio.